Welcome to Nutrient Nirvana, a channel that likes to explore a wide range of subjects that we hope will help our viewers become more informed and empowered. Hi, I'm your host Paul, and in today's episode, I'm joined by a very interesting lady, Emma Goodwin. Emma is a natural health advocate and a G.A.P.S practitioner. Emma, welcome to Nutrient Nirvana. How are you?
Hey Paul, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well too, and I've been really looking forward to this. I've been following you on Facebook and YouTube, and totally stoked up for this one. So before we get into G.A.P.S, could you just talk us through your health journey?
Yeah. By the way, I'm a G.A.P.S coach, not a G.A.P.S practitioner. And
Apologies.
a practitioner is somebody who has a medical background already and then trains with Dr. Natasha and is allowed to talk about contraindications with medications, and they can do testing and things like that. I'm just food as medicine using the G.A.P.S thing. And I'm kind of somebody who can just encourage people and be a friend and a support. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm not qualified medically.
Okay. Sorry
Yeah.
about
There's
that.
no sweat. I just thought I'd better make that clear. So where did my health journey start? Well, crikey. Well, I had hiccups and tummy ache as a child all the time, and migraines as a child. And also I was miserable. I was just really
I
miserable.
find that really hard to believe.
No, I
That
was such a
literally like the
sad
last few
child.
days.
I
Yeah.
was so
Oh
sad.
dear.
And because I just knew in my heart of hearts that something was really fundamentally wrong about school, about everything. And I was like, why are the kids all so mean to each other? And why are we all so uptight? And what is school for? And I just couldn't work it out. And then I left home. I went to drama school at 18. I went to London to go to drama school. And I was anxious, depressed, wasn't eating great, drinking lots of lagers and eating Greg's pasties and for breakfast and having kebabs
Mm.
on the way home from drama school, that kind of eating really poorly.
Sorry to interrupt, but it couldn't have been easy being a drama student if you were suffering with anxiety and depression. That must have been very difficult because you've got to come out of yourself, haven't you, to act?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they like slightly vulnerable types in that world. You know, they like the vulnerable ones who have a degree of self-confidence, but who are still looking slightly pained or slightly having a vulnerability or sensitivity
Mhm.
to them.
Yeah.
Um, I came out of there playing. I came out of drama school and then played a doctor in a medical drama for um, 5 years,
Oh, wow.
medics with on ITV. In the 90s, I was basically drug pushing for the pharmaceutical industry. I was miserable in that work as well. When I was in my 20s, everyone, I'd get wolf whistles and I'd turn around and scowl at them because I'd had a permanent frown on my face. I just walked around with a big frown on my face for virtually the whole of my 20s. Everyone was like, cheer up, love, it might never happen. And then I met my husband acting in the acting world. And I was always just not quite right. And I knew something was not quite right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And then when I was 28, I got seriously depressed, like so depressed that I couldn't put food in my mouth without dissolving into tears. you know,
Yeah, it is.
Cried every day for about 6 months.
Oh my
I
God.
was like, "What is my life? Why am I here? What is going on?" I felt
Mm.
friendless, penniless, um, jobless. I don't know, I felt less, everything less. But I was living in Fulham, for heaven's sake, in my own flat, and I'd been to drama school, I had friends, I had work on and off, I mean, being an actor, you know what it's like. Um, anyway, I found a yoga center, and if you got there at 6 o'clock in the morning and you could do free yoga and pranayama and do a bit of karma yoga. And if you get there at 6 o'clock in the morning, it was free.
Mm.
So I thought, right, I'm going to get on my bike. I'm going to just do something. I've got to do something. I did go to my doctor and say, I can't stop crying. I don't know what's wrong with me. And she went, have these pills. I went, I don't want pills. And then
Mm.
she gave me 10 sessions with some counselor, which basically I just sit there and cry for an hour. It's really futile.
Mm.
Anyway, then I got a job working in the Far East and the Middle East doing a play, entertaining the expats abroad flying first class on British Airways and staying in 5-star hotels, and then doing this play for 1 week in Abu Dhabi, Dubai. We went to Thailand and all sorts of places. But I got jabbed for that job. And I had been jabbed as a child as well. Anyway, I came back, and about a year or two later, after that, I was pregnant with my first child, and I wasn't very well in the pregnancy. And then she came out a bit premature, and she was a bit pasty and a bit skinny and a bit not quite built right. And I was still anxious and depressed. And then I had my second child, and I was even more poorly. I blew up like a balloon. I had legs like an elephant. I got symphysis pubis dysfunction. I had to come down the stairs. I couldn't walk. I had to come down the stairs on my bum. I still managed to have 2 home births, home births, brilliant, with no interventions or anything, thank God. And I breastfed, but then with my second, I got mastitis. So I know this is a really long story, sorry, but yeah, mastitis. And then they dosed us really heavily with antibiotics. And that was the end. That just kind of finished me off. And I was I felt as though I was on death's doorstep every evening. 4:00 in the afternoon, I was finished for the day. I drag myself up in the morning, with these 2 small children, could hardly pick the 3-year-old up because of this problem with my back. And then my littlest got terrible colic because of the antibiotics, and she was just an uncomfortable, cryy child. She just cried the whole time. And then I foolishly jabbed them. And then it just all went downhill from there. And endless snotty noses, endless ear infections, bedwetting when they were way past potty training, endless UTI infections. And my migraines were still going on. I was still anxious. I was still depressed. It was like, is this my life? Oh my God. Yeah, I was like, Jesus, I'm like 35. What in God's name is this? And then by some pure fluky chance on the interweb, I found an interview with Dr. Natasha. And I was like, oh my God. I got the book, and I was just crying with relief. Just saying, this is it. This is what's wrong. This is what's wrong with all of us and everything. This is it. Yeah.
Was it that one?
Yeah, that's my Bible. Yeah.
Fantastic book, everyone. If you haven't read this, go out and get it. It could save your life, literally. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Well, then I tried to do it by the book. I was a bit lonely with it, and I didn't do it right, and it didn't quite work, but it was a bit better. And I was the mother at the school gate. The other mothers would see me coming and go, oh my God, there's that woman, can Billy come and play? That's my daughter. I was like, yeah, Billy loves to come and play, but she can't have bread, she can't have crackers, she can't have pasta or pizza or pop, she can't have sweeties, or I'd foolishly tell them what she couldn't have rather than saying what she could have, which is fried eggs and bacon and sausages and chicken casserole with lots of lovely vegetables, and she can have scrambled eggs and fruits, dried fruits and nuts and all sorts of things. She could have all sorts of things. But it was hard. It was tough. And I vowed then that I would make it easy for the other mothers who felt like they were going mad and who were exhausted, who had ADHD kids, because both my kids were ADHD. They had tics, twitches, we had Tourette's. It was a nightmare. And I thought, I'm going to make this so easy. I'm going to make this so easy for the other mothers. Everybody needs to know about this. Because it's sort of like a big 2 fingers up to the industrial food system when you start to do GAPS. So you're really denying the industrial corporate monster when you choose this path. And it doesn't have to give you rosy cheeks and put you in a good mood.
Yeah, brilliant. I feel like I need to pause for reflection now, because first of all, I don't have a television. I'm not a TV person. So apologies for not realising that I was talking to a celebrity today.
No.
I honestly didn't know. So wow, that's really cool that you've got this acting past, and you managed to do that while going through everything you've just explained. That's incredible.
Well, I think so many people do actually just struggle on thinking that this is it. They think they go, oh, I'm a bit down and I'm a bit achy and my tummy hurts a bit. I'm a bit bloaty. I'm a bit migrainey, but I'll just pop a pill. It'll be okay. And they just keep going. They don't realize that once they actually get really well with the food as a medicine, it's like, wow, the world looks like a totally different place.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, how have we got so lost as a species when it comes to health and food? What
We've
happened?
been lied to. We've been lied to and deceived and sold a load of crap and poisoned, low-level poisoned, for decades, low-level poisoned
Hmm.
with herbicides, pesticides. The chemical corporations,
Mm,
unregulated or self-regulated, have just
mm,
sprayed us like lab rats. I
hmm,
mean, since the Second World War, when
mm.
they used, they were like, what are we going to do with all these bombs and all these nitrogen bombs? I know, let's make some artificial fertilizer and sell it to farmers, and
Yeah.
which inadvertently killed the soil biome,
Mhm,
the bugs in the soil. And then,
mhm,
of course, you need to do something to get the plants to grow. So you just got to feed them, and then you get illness, and then you got to
mm.
pesticide. It's just a disaster,
Yep.
farming. And the government has done everything in its power, it seems to me, to break up small family businesses. And as we know, we can see that from the Rona, but this has been happening for decades and decades in the farming
Mm,
industry, with cheap imports coming in and undercutting small farmers, and
mm.
the milk, the milk industry, and the
Yep.
wool, nobody wanting any of those marvelous products. And of course, you know, milk, pasteurized milk and pasteurized dairy products are completely indigestible. Completely. We need fermented foods,
Mm,
fermented kefir, yogurt, sour cream,
mm,
cheeses, all of that beautiful. Then we
mm,
can eat it. It's no wonder that half the world's lactose intolerant, because you can't digest pasteurized dairy.
mm, mm.
Ridiculous. So
Yeah.
yeah, how have we got ourselves in this mess? It's a really good question. Mm. We have been lied to, though. Ansel Keys, who came up with that hypothesis, the heart diet hypothesis, don't
Mm.
eat saturated fat or it's going to give you a heart attack. What a
Yes, I
big,
read this in Dr. Natasha's book. I remember that.
big
And that was
fat
written really on
lie.
behalf of the pharmaceutical companies, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's still held up to this day. You know, modern doctors still kind of believe in cholesterol being this big bad, enemy of people, and it's anything but.
And what's the food that's got the highest level of cholesterol in it? Is
Go on.
caviar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What does that tell you?
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So there might be some of my viewers now that are thinking, what's all this GAPS thing going on? So could you explain to my viewers exactly what GAPS is and what it stands for? And you've got the
Yeah.
floor.
Okay, so GAPS is an acronym of Gut and Psychology Syndrome. And there's another book, a blue book, Gut and Physiology Syndrome, where Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, who is the guru behind this whole system, this whole nutritional protocol, she's expanded upon her initial book. And she wrote that book because her son got
Mm,
vaccine damaged. Her own son became autistic after he was vaccinated. And she was a neurological surgeon in Russia, right? Really big brain, neurological surgeon, and then she was like, I'm in the medical profession, I get my son vaccinated, and then that was that. And then so she went back to medical school, did another medical degree in gut workings and nutrition. And then she used her ancestral heritage, the wisdom of her ancestral heritage, to develop this way of eating. So lots of fermented foods, lots of fermented vegetables, fermented dairy, lots of soups and stews and lovely rich foods, very high in fat. But what we're doing on GAPS is we're healing leaky gut. I'm sure a lot of your people, or some of them, may have heard of leaky
mm,
gut, maybe. Well, I'll just explain that really quickly. Your gut lining we're like a tube. There's the entrance, there's the exit, and we're like a tube, and it's lined with these villi, these kind of little hairs, which have cells on them. And then even those cells have got little hairs on them as well, actually. And so it's like the surface area of a football pitch is absolutely massive. It's your first line of defense, and it's only one cell thick. And it's what stops any poisons that might get in there from actually getting into your system.
mm,
It's almost like your inside and your gullet there is like the outside still, if you know what I mean.
mhm,
But some of the foods we're eating, or I mean, lots of things can damage this one cell thick layer. Lots of things can damage it. Taking pharmaceuticals, taking paracetamol regularly, taking any kind of pharmaceutical, taking the birth control pill, just breathing these days is enough to get you toxic. You know, the foods are contaminated with microdoses of pesticides and herbicides. Everyone's ingested it. Glyphosate is just despicable. Glyphosate.
Talking of glyphosate, sorry to interrupt, but I've heard recently that glyphosate is being chucked, or it's actually inside E10 fuel, this new fuel that everyone's using. I can't remember exactly how it's got into there, but basically now everyone is driving down the road chucking out glyphosate everywhere.
So everyone's breathing it in. You know, it's everywhere, and it does terrible things to us. Anyway, we need to protect ourselves. So even some fairly innocuous foods, even if you did have biodynamic grain, you know, and it's well fermented, it still has levels of plant toxins in it, lectins. Lectins, phytates, they're anti-nutrients, anti-enzymes. But anyway, they can melt the tight junctions between these cells. These are the cells on your gut. And if the junctions between the cells get melted away by all of these toxins and stuff, suddenly you've got no line of defense. And anything that's in your gut can get into your bloodstream.
Is it the oxalates that are like little tiny shards of glass?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and guess what? I mean, one of the foods with the highest levels of oxalates in it is, can you guess?
Spinach?
Yes! And then Popeye the Sailor Man made sure that everyone was eating plenty of spinach from the 1930s.
And getting leaky gut syndrome into the bargain, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's some foods that really we shouldn't be eating. Even potatoes, they're really quite high in oxalates. And
I've heard about berries. Are berries high in oxalates? Because I love berries and I grow them at my allotment, and I absolutely adore berries.
And everything should be had in moderation and seasonally. And, you know, great, have some berries. But if you shouldn't be eating berries every day just because you can get them from the supermarket. And maybe you grow your own spinach, and maybe you only eat it for once, you know, for 2 weeks in spring or something. Okay, it's not so bad. But if you're everyday spinach salad or everyday spinach smoothie with almond milk, another one, almond milk, massively high in oxalates, it'd just be ripping your gut to shreds on a microscopic level. But still, you don't need it.
And of course, all of this information that you're coming out with is pretty much the complete opposite to what we're told in the legacy mainstream media, isn't it? Which are really kind of pushing people towards a plant-based diet. Which I've tried. I was a vegetarian for about a year when I was about 16 years old, I think it was. And every time I smelt a sausage roll, it's just like, no, it was a real struggle. So I only lasted a year. And as a guitar teacher, I've had quite a lot of teenage students, especially over the last few years, that have said to me, you know, oh, Paul, I'm going to be a vegetarian, I'm going to be a vegan. And I kind of started thinking about it again until I came across Natasha Campbell McBride. And I'm so pleased that I did now, because for the reasons you just stated, really, a plant-based diet for the vast majority of people, I think, is a really bad move. Really bad.
There are no people on the whole of the planet who eat a purely plant-based diet. I don't care what anyone says. There are people in India who eat mostly vegetarian, but when they can get their hands on some duck eggs and some ghee, they do.
Well, there are so many Indian people that I think if they ate animals, there'd be no animals in India after about a week, probably, I would imagine, because there's over 1 billion Indian people, aren't there? So from that point of view, it's just not going to happen. But as you say, I mean, the Indian cow is sacred, isn't it? And it's because of the ghee and the butter and the animal fats that they get from their diet that way. So,
but you know, who made it sacred? A religion. What's religion? Where did religion come from? Who says you're not supposed to do what? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, there's a whole vegan agenda. It's an agenda, the vegan thing. It's an agenda to weaken us so that our bodies are weak, so that then therefore our minds get weak, and then we can't actually focus on what we want to focus on. We're easily led, like a good sheeple, and you know, there's not so much resistance to this unbelievable totalitarian takeover.
Yeah. So just going back to what you were talking about with your past and stuff. So you had this, a long, horrible kind of experience of migraines and other health issues, and then you came across Dr. Natasha. How long did it take you to restore your health using G.A.P.S?
Really, honestly, about 10 years. But I wouldn't expect that to be the case with anybody else, because I can show them what they need to do. I was experimenting and I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to do it by the book, but it was difficult. And I mean, I'm still learning now, and I'm still feeling better and better. I've started now to supplement some things, which Dr. Natasha says we shouldn't really supplement, because if your gut's leaky, whatever you're putting in probably won't be absorbed properly. And also the capsules they're in, which used to be gelatin, which is good, and it's been demonized by the BSC debacle. They should be gelatin, but they're methyl cellulose, which is like plastic.
I just want to point out, in my company, we use gelatin capsules.
Nice work, Paul. Good work.
Yeah, and I would assume as well, because they're made of gelatin, that they're going to be absorbed even more efficiently, aren't they?
Yes.
You
Your gut needs gelatin, it needs collagen. Both of those things been demonized. I remember when I was young, collagen was all being injected into people's lips and things, and it was all like, collagen? Ooh, we need collagen. We need gelatin. We need these amino acids. Yeah.
Okay. So now you're busy with your business, Timeless Cookery, is that right?
Yeah.
I've been watching your YouTube channel. I've been binge watching your YouTube channel. Actually, really enjoying it. And you run a company called Timeless Cookery, and you offer courses to people. Is that right?
Yeah.
Could you explain
So it's my coaching business. So I have a G.A.P.S app. I created a G.A.P.S app, and on the G.A.P.S app, see, I used to teach people live, obviously. I used to invite people to my home. I used to go to the local farm shop and give courses on how to cook G.A.P.S foods. And there would be little groups of about 10 people. We'd do little 6-week courses. And it was just a kind of sideline, because I was working as a grower for a community supported agriculture scheme, growing veg for the veg boxes. And we kept pigs and chickens. And we had this little small holding in Forest Row called The Crossing, Forest Row, crossing over into a different way of being, which I started in 2011. And I digressed and I lost my train of thought then. Where was I going with that? I've been on the beach today and it's been so lovely, and I'm quite
we were talking about how you recovered your health with G.A.P.S, how long it took.
How long it took. Yeah, it took a long time.
10 years, you said.
Yeah. So I knew what you were asking me about my business. Yeah. So I was working on the small holding, and I was doing the coaching sort of as a sideline, just because so many of my friends were struggling with this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, man, what about if you try this? Why don't you do? Come round and I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you how to ferment the dairy. I'll show you, I just genuinely wanted everyone to feel better. So it was just a little small concern. And then when the Rona hit, I was still working on the small holding, and I had just in the October before that spring lockdown, I'd been on the small holding, and I was teaching a young man how to use a scythe. And so we were just clearing around some trees with these scythes, and his scythe got tangled in some bindweed. And I stood back, and as I stood up, he was pulling the scythe, and it went over his shoulder, and it pranged me in my face. You know what a scythe is? Like, it's a massive blade about that long, super sharp. You usually keep the blade on the floor, and you just sort of like, it's like what the Reaper has, what the Grim Reaper has. Yeah. Well, anyway, I took a scythe to the face.
Oh my God.
And it just hit me here, a tiny little scar I've got. But if it had been like 2 inches higher, it would have taken my eye out. If it had been a little way that way, it would have brained me through my nostril. If it had been a little bit that way, it would have like sliced my cheek. And if it had been down here, I'd be a goner.
Did you keep your cool? Did you hit him back?
No, I hit the deck. I was out. I was like a bell. It was like it hit my skull. The point of the scythe hit my skull. Bang! Like rang like a bell in my head, and I was just like on the floor, and I could taste blood in my mouth. But anyway, tiny little nothing. It grazed along my top jaw a little bit, but I was spared, and that was a massive wake up call for me. It's like, what are you doing, Emma? you know, you've been spared. Like, we spared you because you've got some important work to do. You need to get out there and tell people about the food as the medicine. Get off the land and stop prattling about with your CSA and your veg box scheme. You know, other people can do that now. You know. So then I was like, right, shit, I need to reach hundreds of thousands of people. I need to really get out there and get the message out there. So I was like, right, I made an app, a G.A.P.S app, so that all of the stuff that I'd been teaching live could be recorded. But it's very like just relaxed in the kitchen. It's just me in my kitchen going, chop it up and chuck it in. It's simple, you know. And then with that app, which has got about 50 little short videos, how do you make liver pate, how do you make meringues, how do you make, you know, whatever. And then it's got lectures and cookery demos in a long 12-week course. Because it's a little bit complicated, G.A.P.S. I like to tell everyone it's completely simple and to start with small steps and anyone can do it. But some people get a bit overwhelmed. So I like to just break it down, keep it simple. And then the coaching side of things, I just meet like this on a Zoom, and I take a long history and really get the big picture, and then give them a plan. And we meet every 2 weeks. And you know, sometimes it takes 6 months, sometimes it takes a year, but we get there. We're helping non-verbal autistic children to find their voice and to get centered and to get the toxicity out.
And I've read so many testimonials from people that have recovered their health. I think we've got to be a little bit careful about what we say on YouTube here, but there are loads of testimonials on this where children that are non-verbal, as you say, and have many sort of issues and health problems, and they pretty much recover on this diet.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone. I'm not making any guarantees. I'm not saying this is going to cure anything. I'm not saying this is going to this is a cure. It's not a cure. It's a journey. It's a journey. And it's a really worthwhile journey, because you really start to get connected to source. You get connected to the earth. You start to find producers who are doing it the right way, with love, regenerative agricultural models that actually strengthen the web of life. And like I say, you're kind of going, food industry, get lost. I'm not interested in you. I'm going to do it the right way.
We're kind of connecting back to our ancestors, aren't we? I mean, to a large extent, the G.A.P.S diet is kind of pretty much like the ancestral diet, isn't it? Because you're preserving and fermenting foods, which is what our ancestors would have done, I don't know, maybe 100 years ago, maybe more, before fridges, before supermarkets. These foods are so beneficial to your gut, aren't they? With the amount of probiotics and live enzymes, and plus, if I understand it rightly, a lot of the nutrition in these foods, once they've become fermented, the nutrition levels actually rise, don't they? Increase. So it's hugely beneficial to eat fermented foods.
Yeah, sauerkraut, so much vitamin C, so much vitamin C. There's no point in supplementing vitamin C. You might as well just eat kraut and kimchi and kvass and stuff like that, and sour cream, and offal. Eat liver, eat kidneys, brains, tongue, whatever you can get hold of, nose to tail. This is the thing. When you start eating this way, you don't actually need very much food. So one cow is going to keep a heck of a lot of people going. I mean, I've got a couple of pig's trotter. I've got a pig's trotter split in two in my stock pot. Okay, it's not a big slab of meat, right? It's a really cheap cut. It was £1.38 or something, you know. It's in the stock pot, and I boil it up every day, and then I use that stock to cook everything, to cook my food, to cook my vegetables, to drink like tea, to make a soup, to make a stew, make a stuff, whatever. I just use stock all day long, and that's what's given me the building blocks to have rosy cheeks and energy to do gardening all day, and no pain and no pharmaceuticals aged 53.
Fantastic. So one of the biggest problems that we've got in the world at the moment, or the Western world anyway, is obesity. Now, as I understand it, people that are obese are constantly eating because they're constantly starving of minerals, because they're eating all the wrong foods. And we've been told for decades now that fats are really bad. They're bad for the heart. Foods like butter and eggs. I can remember when I was at school in the early 80s or something like that, we were made to watch a video about how bad and how evil butter was, and how bad eggs were for you. and that you should avoid, and this was in school, you should avoid these foods because one day in the not too distant future, you'll end up with a heart attack and being dead because you eat butter and eggs, and you have to eat margarine and low fat foods. We were told that in school. We were shown videos on it. I remember.
Love to try and find those videos, man.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
No, true
criminal.
story. True
That's
story.
criminal, that is.
Yeah, I know exactly. So, fats are essential, aren't they, for your health? Our brains are made out of cholesterol, aren't they?
Yeah.
Cholesterol and water, and without a constant supply, and now also you've got the added worry. You've got statins, and statins not only reduce the cholesterol in the body, but they reduce your liver's ability to produce cholesterol. And since we've been told about in this country, in the UK, that sort of eggs, butter are bad, and how everybody from their 30s onwards should be taking statins. Now I saw this on Sky News about 3-4 months ago. There was a sketch they did, a piece they did, where there was this elderly couple, and the man was looking after his wife because his wife had dementia. And the whole premise behind the sketch was that if people would only start taking statins in their 30s, they would avoid dementia and Alzheimer's in later life. The complete opposite is the truth. I mean, mainstream media. That's all you need to know about mainstream media, because I mean, how twisted and evil is that message?
It's terrible, isn't it?
It's horrific.
My only experience with statins is that my dad started taking them and he turned into a grumpy old git. And then I said to him, Dad, why don't we just have some kefir, fermented kefir, and then why don't we just drop the statins for a while and see how you feel? He proper perked up and cheered up. So that was that. We didn't do that anymore. Yeah.
Well, obviously, his brain was starving, wasn't it, of fats and.
Yeah. So your brain is over 50% saturated fat. Mother's milk is over 50% saturated fat. Every cell in your body has a phospholipid membrane, which is made of fats, and all of the insulation on your wiring, on your electrical, on your nervous system, right, is fats. So any kind of neurodegenerative, any kind of aches and where you can't, cramps and your body's not doing what it's supposed to do, autoimmune illness, inflammation of any description, it's all gut related.
Yep. So
that's what's going to heal you quick, is the fats.
Exactly. So we've already mentioned the plant-based diet and the fact that veganism is becoming a lot more popular, but it just isn't possible to get the fats that we need with a vegan diet. It's actually difficult, I suppose, with a vegetarian diet, but with a vegan diet, it's impossible.
It's impossible. Doctor, so have you heard of Weston A. Price?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Weston A. Price.
Yeah, please explain who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, the Weston A. Price. Weston A. Price was a dentist in the 1920s, and he travelled the world for the American Dental Association, on behalf of the American Dental Association. He went to the Four Corners. He ended up in Australia, meeting with the original peoples there. He went to Switzerland, to the high mountains where they would do grazing in the mountains, and looked at what were they eating. He went to the Inuit in the far north. He went to the Maasai warriors of Africa, the nomadic peoples. And what were they eating? What were they eating? He was noting down very carefully. He was also taking a photographic evidence of the young people's teeth and their mouths and their faces. Their faces were round. I mean, even my face is a bit long, but their faces were round, and they had really lovely white straight teeth and square jaws, And then when the Coca-Cola and Kellogg's cornflakes started coming into the equation in those places, then he took photographs of the differences and the changes. Suddenly the jawline, the faces became long, and the jawline, the teeth became cramped, and there was this very obvious thing. Anyway, he came back to America with all of his findings, with some great writings, and it was all swept under the carpet. Surprise, surprise. So then lovely lady called Sally Fallon, don't know how she got hold of all his work and whatnot, but she revived interest in his work.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got that book. Come on, show us.
I have, and it's such a beautiful cover as well. I wanted to
Yeah.
show it. Can you see,
Yeah,
everyone? So
wise traditions in food,
it's
farming,
a really big book as
and
well. It's
healing
full
art.
of recipes, and it aligns with GAPS, doesn't it? Pretty much. I think I'm right in saying.
It's, that's the kind of diet that you'll be aiming for when you come off GAPS.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So GAPS is to heal and seal the gut. In fact, Dr. Natasha was director on their board of directors for ages, the Weston A. Price Foundation. They ferment their grains properly. They ferment their grains, and we don't do grains on GAPS because that feeds the pathogens, and it's very difficult to heal a leaky gut if you stick on the grains. The worst offender is vegetable oils. So
Yes.
throw those away immediately.
Exactly, yeah. I think I'm right in saying it's only safe really to cook with butter or coconut oil or lard, tallow maybe, and ghee, and that's about it. There isn't anything
Goose
else.
fat, duck fat,
Yeah, duck
lard,
fat,
any animal fat really. And
mm,
coconut oil's great, it's okay. But I always
mm,
say, why send a boy to do a man's job? Because we need the animal fats.
mm,
A lot of vegetarians, vegans say, yeah, I'm getting my saturated fat with coconut oil. It's like, it's
mm,
okay, but it's not going to get you what you need, that you really, really need.
mm,
And you don't need much. You've got a jar of rendered lard or a jar of tallow, a
mm,
teaspoon of that in the pan, start frying your onions. Right, now
mm,
chuck in the rest of the veg. Now put in some stock and kind of steam fry it a bit. Now add another large knob of butter and a bit of fermented garlic just at the end. And now put in some little very thin slices of steak. One
mm,
steak could do a whole family of 4 with lots and lots of veg. But the
mm.
veg has got to be well cooked in stock with lots of good fats.
Right.
And then we can have lots of dessert. We have ice creams and cakes and muffins and all sorts of yummy things, but made with nut flours, coconut flour or almond
Mm,
flour, but with lots of
mm,
eggs, lots of cream, lots of butter, lots of
mm.
these animal fats.
Just going back to what you said about stock. What's the difference between stock and broth? Because I've never really understood that. So,
That's such a good question, Paul. Well done. Because everyone's like, I've got my broth, I've got my bone broth, I'm having my bone broth.
mm, mm,
They're all chuffed and happy that they're on it, but they're still not
mm,
feeling well.
mm,
And what's happening is, so bone broth is some bones, maybe they've been roasted already, maybe they're just big bones and they're in the pot and people cook them for hours. I mean, hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, I don't know, they put them in.
mm,
And they do get an amazing substance, bone broth, but it's very high in glutamic acid, which is like monosodium glutamate kind of thing. It's an excitotoxin.
right.
So for people who are already a bit depressed or anxious, it's going to make them more
Mm,
anxious, right? So that's not great,
mm,
and
mhm,
it is quite. It's an interesting food, and if you've got a healed gut, then go for the bone broth, go for it. But if you're trying to heal your gut, let's do
mm,
meat stock. So
mhm,
meat stock is the whole bird, the whole chicken, or a whole leg of lamb, or a whole rack of ribs, or a whole pig's trotter, or it's like the skin, the bone, the connective tissue, the meat, the everything, all
mhm,
right together.
mm,
So the chicken's the easiest one to start with, or you could use duck or goose or a turkey leg or fish heads.
mm,
Excellent, make an excellent stock. Put your chicken in the water, top it up, and then classic French cuisine ingredients: an onion, celery, carrot. Just one of each, in the pot.
mm,
Couple of peppercorns and some sea salt. Now you just want to cook it till the meat falls off the bone. That's the rule of thumb. Just cook it till the meat falls off the bone. Hour and a half for a chicken, maybe hour and a half, 2 hours for a leg of lamb,
mhm,
maybe a little bit longer for beef. But it's not very long. So then you've made meat stock. And
mm,
that is what's going to heal your gut. It's full of collagen, full of gelatin, full of got all the amino acids in it that are
mm,
easily assimilable, that are going to
mhm,
feed those cells
mm,
and get their tight junctions fixed.
mm.
That's a
Fan-
difference.
Yeah, fantastic, brilliant. I think I understand now. Thanks for clearing that up. I've been mystified about that for years. So
Yeah.
brilliant. Yes. Um, we've talked about plant toxins, haven't we?
A little bit. We just touched on oxalates, yeah.
Yeah, we
And
did. Yeah.
I did have a thought actually when you said that. Potatoes are quite high. Chocolate is quite high.
Mhm.
Veg oils, they're despicable and full of trans fatty acids and kill you.
Mm.
What do we see on, or peanuts are quite high as well. So what do we see at all the checkouts of all the supermarkets and all the corner shops in the whole of England? What can you buy across the board in every single shop? What can you get? Crisps, potatoes, high oxalate, made with vegetable oils that are going to kill you, and chocolate,
It's mad,
sweeties,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I'm sure it's all just a coincidence.
Yes. I'm just
Yeah.
going to mute myself for a second. I need to cough.
Yep. So, why are breakfast cereals so bad for us, Emma?
Well, yeah, breakfast cereals.
Before you get going, can I just say that the reason why I'm asking you this is because I did a post on this on my Facebook group, and I was really surprised by the amount of people that follow my group. It's a health group, and a lot of these people supplement and they're into, trying to live a healthy lifestyle. And oh no, are you saying I can't eat my Weetabix anymore? And I was genuinely surprised. I thought that was a given that everyone would realize that these foods aren't foods. They're not foods at
Mm-mm.
all. They're anything but. And obviously they've been sprayed to buggery with glyphosate, and the wheat these days is not the wheat we had even 50 years ago. Probably it only comes up to your knee now. It's been hybridized and, as I say, been sprayed, and just it's a horror story. These foods are like literally a horror story. It doesn't end there. So, but yeah, go on. I've got you going. So
No, they
can you tell us?
really are. I mean, you've basically said it in a nutshell. You're microdosing with pesticides, herbicides,
Mm,
glyphosate. You're getting
mm,
microdosed with every mouthful. Also, they've been extruded, they call it. So, if you're going to eat a grain, really, it needs to be properly prepared. So it needs to be grown well in good soil with some muck or whatever, great. And then it needs to be dried, harvested well, and then it needs to be soaked. It needs to be soaked so that you can get rid of the lectins. The
mm,
lectins are the things that melt your tight junctions. Yeah.
mm, yeah.
It's also got phytates in it. So it needs to be soaked and all of that washed away. Maybe it needs to be washed and then malted or sprouted. So you
Mm,
soak it, get rid of those toxins. Maybe you soak it again the next day and get rid of some more. And then maybe
mm,
you rinse it and leave it to sprout, to molt, and then you get a different nutritional profile then. But all of this is a massive process that takes time on a bulk,
mm,
on a big scale.
mm, yeah.
So they don't do it. And then it needs to be fermented. So interestingly, the French, by law, with their French bread, are obliged to. I mean, I haven't been to the boulangerie and checked on this, but three people have told me. The French people have told me this, that it's the law. They have to ferment it for 72 hours. So when you ferment it for 72 hours, the lectin count will go from something like 700 parts per million per gram or something, I don't know, to, I don't know what the measurement is, don't quote me on that, I don't really
Mhm.
know, to 4 parts per million.
Wow.
700 to 4 parts per million. That's
Yeah.
a massive difference. Your
Mm,
body can cope with the 4 parts per million of the lectins,
mm,
but having a daily mouthful, daily dose of that much lectins, it's a toxin. It's a plant toxin. It's gonna mess with you. All the
mm,
old ways of preparing foods would have taken their time. They
mm,
would have taken their time with it. It would have been well soaked, sprouted, fermented. That's what we do
mm,
on G.A.P.S in the kitchen.
mm,
It doesn't take long. It's just a little, you just leave it in a bowl to soak, then you strain it and then rinse it. It's like, so what? Sometimes they start going a bit moldy. When I say moldy, I mean white growth, like a cheese rind. That's
mhm,
because my kitchen is full of lactobacillus. My whole kitchen is full, and I
mm,
just stir it in and eat it. Bit of
mm,
white mold, that's good. That's what we're after. We want to culture and cultivate
mm, mm.
these. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's what cereal is not well prepared. In fact,
Mm,
isn't it in that book, Nourishing Traditions, that don't they point out that someone did a test study somewhere where they looked at the nutritional value of the cereal compared to the nutritional value of the cardboard box it was served in? It was,
That's right. It was either Sally's book or the G.A.P.S one.
and the
But
cardboard box had more nutritional value.
yeah, I think it was in Dr Natasha's book. I think
Right,
actually, yeah,
yeah.
that was crazy. I remember reading that. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
man,
what
so
it's
it's just
so
not
hard.
worth eating. They're
Yeah,
not foods. They're
no.
food-like products, pretend, and they've got sugars in them, so they make them super addictive. And you're
All
like, I
sorts of
need it.
chemicals as well in when they're processed. And I think I read somewhere recently that they actually sedate you, breakfast cereals, a lot of them. And that was interesting because many years ago I went through an episode of having insomnia. And I used to wake up in the middle of the night, and the only thing, well, not wake up, I used to get up in the middle of the night, and the only thing that would get me off to sleep was if I ate a bowl of cornflakes or whatever. That seemed
Soporific.
to, yeah.
I tell you what that is. It's that the gliadin or the gluten molecule. There is a protein in the gluten which, when mal-digested and then absorbed through the hole in your leaky gut and gets
Mm,
into your system, it
mm.
resembles a morphine molecule, and
Ah,
it's literally called
right.
glutomorphine. And the
Mm,
same with some cheese proteins, casomorphine. So
right.
you can get high on a cheese sandwich
Brilliant.
if you've got leaky gut. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you want another cheese sandwich 2 hours later, and another cheese
Mm,
sandwich 2 hours
mm,
after that, and you
sure.
just eat cheese sandwiches all day long, and
Mm,
then, exhausted after your roller coaster of insulin,
mm,
highs and lows, you roll into bed and your body tries to repair itself without any
mm,
building blocks,
mm,
and then it just day on day on day, we're just wearing ourselves down.
mm.
Grains for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, breakfast cereal and then a sandwich and then pasta for supper.
And maybe biscuits in between.
Disaster, darling.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And there's so many people eating like that, and so many kids eating like that
Yeah.
as well.
But
And
the
I
good news
see.
is you don't have to.
Mm,
And when you don't anymore, like, bing, you come online and it's like,
mm,
oh my God, I'm
mm,
awake and alert. I know what's going on. I'm
mm,
not yawning
mm.
after my meal. I'm not having to go to bed. I don't get my migraines anymore. It's just a whole different world and it's
Mm,
marvelous. Got to tell you, really.
yeah, fantastic. Okay, so last question for you today, Emma. We've talked a lot about gaps and health and stuff. I've been following you for a while on Facebook, so I do see your posts. So I wanted to ask you, what woke you up?
Wow. Let me think. What woke me up?
Somebody asked me this a while ago, and I couldn't remember.
Right.
It's maybe I should have worded that differently, but it's
Well, I think
not.
it's a good question.
It's
I
not
think
always. Go on.
no, go on. It's not always well.
It's not always a single thing or single experience that does it. It's a gradual thing, isn't it?
Mm,
Yeah, I thought I think I sort of woke up around 15 years ago, officially or whatever. But before that, I'd read books on the JFK assassination. I'd read books on UFOs and mysteries, the unsolved, paranormal and
mm.
things. So I think I was always inclined that way, if you see what I mean.
Questioning. Yeah.
But yeah, it's very hard to define that moment when I woke up.
Mm,
But
mm.
I'll ask you anyway. How'd you wake up?
Well, one of my earliest memories was a sort of reoccurring dream where I was in space and I could see me, and I was a kind of little blade of grass with a few tufty bits on it, kind of flickering in a cosmic breeze. And in the distance was a huge mothership,
Wow.
just kind of in the energy of it, and I'd just be I'd be in this kind of wasteland of space, going, why aren't I
Wow.
there?
Wow. You
Right,
hadn't
so
been eating cheese sandwiches all day, had you?
I was literally a tiny, tiny, tiny. That was one of my first memories. That was that
Yeah.
feeling of
Yeah.
being separate
That's
and
amazing.
wanting to go back home.
Mm. Mm.
So I have always felt not really part of this whole Earth School
Matrix.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, But when did I actually wake up? I suppose it was, I always had this feeling like there was something not right, and then that this wasn't. There was something just wrong.
Mm.
I suppose it was when I had my first child. I got into biofuels, and I was like, I'm going to go and collect chip fat from the chippy, and I'm going to convert it into biodiesel, and we're going to drive our car on it. It's going to be awesome, little cottage industry, And I
Mm.
suddenly came up against all these barriers and like the fat mafia, and then my local councillor and my, putting, taxes in the way of it and like problems, and like it just wasn't easy. And so I wrote to my MP. I was like, why are you making this so difficult for people? It's a great solution. It's like fat mountains are not down the drains anymore. We're recycling something and we can use it for energy to drive our cars,
Mm.
And I'm pretty sure that I was visited. I don't think I was being paranoid in hindsight. I had a visit from the council saying, would you like a combined heat and power unit installed retrospectively into your house? I was like, well, of course I would. I'm into recycling and Anyway, he came in and sat himself down on my sofa, didn't start looking at the refit idea or anything, and he was basically casing me out. I was like, and that was about 20 years ago. And I
Yeah.
remember reading then about Rudolf Diesel taking his patents on a boat from Austria over to America and mysteriously disappearing overboard. And we all know the end of that story, with diesel engines with the fossil fuels. And I was like,
Oh,
oh
wow.
God, that
I
man,
didn't know
Rudolf Diesel, he ran his engine on peanut oil,
that. Mm.
which is
That's,
what peanuts are good for. Peanuts are not good for eating.
mm. Mm. We
So,
haven't talked about nuts, have we? I don't mean,
yeah.
yeah. Are nuts something that G.A.P.S use or you
Well,
use in your,
yeah, we do use nuts, but they've got to be prepared properly. And
right? When you
also,
say prepared, do you mean soaked?
yeah, yeah,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
So you
So
would soak your nuts overnight,
at
basically.
least overnight, and if not longer, and then I would
Mm.
probably ferment them a little bit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But with all of this, people being allergic to peanuts, it's because peanuts are not really supposed to be food. I don't think they're supposed to be an animal food, not
Mm.
a human
Mm.
food. I don't think we're
Mm.
supposed to eat them. But it's so young. That's been pushed on us. Peanut butter Jello
Mm.
sandwiches or whatever.
Mm. Definitely, definitely.
Just got to be
Sorry, you
aware.
were talking about your waking experience, and I started talking about nuts in the middle. I
I
apologise
don't
for that.
mind.
Yeah,
I
just
don't mind.
how has it affected your relationships with friends, people you know, going through this whole waking experience? Because obviously, over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of people that have been red pilled and have had this experience, and then they've gone on to suddenly discover that relationships with people they love or they've got on with for years suddenly become extremely strained, and you
Mm.
just can't seem to penetrate some people with this information.
Mm.
How have you coped with all that yourself?
Well, like I say, I've always felt like a bit of a loner. I've always felt a bit on the edge and alone anyway. So I am a bit of a hermit, a loner. But well, me and my husband split up at the beginning of the Rona because I was posting loads of stuff, and I was like, "My God, have you seen this?" I wasn't saying I believed in it, but I was like, "Oh my God, have you seen this? What do you think of that?" And he was like, "Will you stop posting that stuff? You're like you're not like extreme right wing." And I was like, "I don't even understand what right wing, left wing means. Even it's like we're just all people in this boat in this
Mm,
snow globe, trying to survive and thrive." So
yeah.
yeah, me and my husband split. I
Sorry, I
lost a
didn't
lot of
know that.
friends.
Apologies.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean they like to lump the. I remember seeing an article. I think it was in the Sun where they were showing the people protesting in London against the you know what about 6 months ago, and they were comparing these people with Nazis. And I thought, well, that's interesting. They're shouting for freedom, and you're calling them Nazis. What are they, freedom Nazis? How does that work? In what reality? It's just incredible. That's how they do it. They lump in these,
Yeah.
whether it's freedom people, truthers, whatever, they're all put into this right wing bracket and called Nazis, which is the complete opposite of what's really going on.
Yeah.
So insanity.
It's been really hard for everybody. everybody. But for those people who are, I mean, my dad is steadfastly jabbed, and whenever I talk to him about these things, because I mean, he actually, I shouldn't think he'll ever listen to this, so I'll say it. But even if he hears it, I don't care. I love you, Dad. But he is a sort of unwittingly a minion of the cabal, because he worked for IBM for many, 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 many years. IBM International Business Machines. He was, very manager and well paid. He's got a massive pension now, thank God, because I couldn't look after him financially, I tell you. And so it's like, lots of people are inadvertently working for the dark side, not realizing it. And they're good people, open-hearted, good people who think that the world is a nice place and that people are generally good, which he does. He thinks people are generally good. I think 98% of the people are genuinely good and kind-hearted, but you still get some of these people saying Extinction Rebellion is the way forward.
Crazy, I know. Yeah, we live in a strange reality now where people can be sat in their lounge and they will take the word of somebody behind a screen over the person that they love, that's in their family, that's trying to reach out to them and trying to warn them. But they cannot accept that. They will always go to this person on the screen, this expert or whoever they are. It's the strangest reality that we're experiencing from that point of view.
I think, when you think how we've been brainwashed since the very first day, and how the institutions and the educational establishments basically just sever us from our mother-child bond so early, and sever us from any sense of knowing what you really want. We're not allowed to go to the toilet when we feel like it. We have to eat when the bell rings, Whereas, how about us listening to our bodies and saying, how do I feel today? Should I sleep? No, because we're on this kind of like rat race. Got to do the thing to get the money to pay for the thing, and it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. We're in this trap, But the sooner you can attempt to find your way to be able to sleep when you're tired and eat when you're hungry and have time for each other, and maybe that's at the expense of a well-paid job working for the bad side. I don't know. People have got to make the decision.
Okay, Emma, thanks very much for your time today. I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm glad I've done a G.A.P.S video with you, because I think the message of G.A.P.S is so important at the moment. There are so many people suffering. When I got into this because I had family members that were coming down with all sorts of autoimmune disorders and things I'd never heard of at the time. And these were people in their 30s and 40s. These weren't,
I mean, we haven't even touched on chemtrails or 5G, for heaven's sake, have we? I mean, but the food is the medicine. It gives you a firm foundation to build a strong body that then becomes an antenna for the natural frequencies rather than an antenna for the crap 5G Wi-Fi frequencies. So if you build yourself a strong body, you get your mind straight, then you can start to make the right choices, and then you become an antenna actually for the natural frequencies of the earth, because you're an earthling.
Beautifully said. I totally agree with that. It's lovely. Where can my viewers find your information, find out about your courses and what you offer?
Yeah, I'd love to see you all over in my membership, which is Timeless Cookery Club. And you can find that at timelesscookery.com.
Fantastic.
There's lots of free resources on, Facebook, Insta, and YouTube. But, you're really going to get to the nitty gritty when you come and join me. And if you need real help with something like fibromyalgia or, with these things, these really awkward things, then my coaching is right here for you.
And of course, Timeless Cookery is one of the best channels on YouTube as well. I can vouch for that because I've been binge watching it today. It is brilliant. And some of the recipes you've got on the go are fantastic. So check that out as well. I'll link that below the video.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much, Emma, for coming on with me today. I've really, really enjoyed it. And hopefully I'll see you again, yeah?
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Thank you.